tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the 7 seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, featuring your host here, the old salty dog, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, still down in the Keys, I see, Captain Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning, and I love the way that rolls off your tongue. Political Pirate Podcast.
The 3 Ps. I could do it like that.
Yeah, you've got that down well. I am in the Keys, and unfortunately, I think this is my last broadcast from down here. Monday, I may be here Monday too, but it's been a great trip. Fortunate that we've been able to spend this much time down in fabulous Florida Keys. So look forward to the program. Go ahead.
Well, do you need to be rescued? I want you say, you're almost like you're in prison down there. I want to make sure that you're not like at the fort out there.
No, I tell you what, it's just been a great trip. I went out by myself the other day in a tri-tune boat. It was about 3 miles offshore, caught 8 just awesome yellowtail snapper, and we had very good dinner with those, bringing some home. And I caught the biggest fish I've ever caught. I didn't get to see what it was, but it spooled my line.
You hooked the biggest fish.
You're right. I hooked it. And then I fought that thing for 10, 15 minutes, and I could not turn it. I could not get it to start coming up. It just hunkered down. It had to be a big shark because I was on the bottom with
I tell people all the time, when that happens, all you can say is whatever it was, it still is.
How true. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, before we get too deep into the program, I just want to say, because I'm wearing orange and blue here, and we're usually on Mondays, we're always at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And I know if you're anything like Ted and I, you're a football fan. So, the peak season is about to start here.
It sure is.
I wish you all the best unless you're playing the Florida Gators, and then I'm a homer.
That's right. And we're opening up tomorrow, right? Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. And all the tickets are sold out for every home game.
With it's LIU, right? Long Island University, which is in the Northeast Conference, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, something like that.
That's great.
It's one of the sisters of the poor team. That's what we call it sometimes. It makes a lot of money for them. All right, well, let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to lead off the show talking about what happened in Minneapolis with the school shooting. And we're not going to really get into all the details of it because I'm sure there's still more coming out, and I'm sure people are pretty familiar with that. But I want to cover the reaction to it. And some of it is pretty typical. Of course, there's sadness and all of that kind of stuff. But there's some pretty predictable stuff coming from the left. But before we play all that and get into it, Ted, what are your just general thoughts about the tragedy that happened in Minneapolis?
I mean, when I first heard about this, it's horrific. It's a tragedy. And we're seeing way too many of these. And as we go through, as you play these things, we're going to have some comments afterwards. But I think the underlying issue, and you're going to hear them talk about gun control and all the typical things. It comes down to what I see is the mental health illness, and it's parenting. And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, so the first video I'm going to play is a snippet from the mayor of Minneapolis, and I probably don't have to tell our audience, but he is a hardcore liberal. Minneapolis is basically almost like San Francisco these days, I think.
Sure is.
But we got a short clip of his first reaction to this on the street immediately after. I think it's pretty interesting.
And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of.
Well, it's become very typical of the Democrats, the progressives, to chastise, I'm assuming Republicans, but I think there's probably the majority of Americans, when they have a tragedy like this, whether it be obviously horrendous, Ted, with these school kids, or like the guy that, killed the three with the truck here in Florida and all that kind of stuff. If you're a spiritual person, especially if you're a Christian, but you're going to say that our thoughts and prayers are with the families, the victims, and all that of this tragedy. It doesn't mean you're downplaying any of the causes, results. It doesn't even mean you're downplaying anything to do with guns, and we'll get into more of that in a minute. It just means that your belief system is that you believe in the power of prayer and you want to say so. But I really don't understand why the Democrats even chastise that, Ted.
I don't either. That's something I just don't understand. And I don't. Jen Psaki has come out, pretty much along those same lines. Hopes and prayers and all those things aren't going to solve this. You know what? It's in times of tragedy like this is when you really do need the hopes and prayers. Again, and I sympathize with him because he goes. I listened to the whole thing, and he was talking about I'm a parent. And he goes, and I pray for my daughter. And I don't know if he used the word pray, but he goes, she's the most important thing to me outside of my marriage. And, I think any adult, any parent would feel that way. But to come out and just say prayers and thoughts, we're tired of hearing that. I agree. And I think we should get at the root cause of this. But in these times, I think that's the one thing you have to fall down on is the prayers and the hopes that come with that. And I can't tell you, I'm a Christian in my life, how many times prayer has been answered, and I'm going to continue praying.
Well, I think a lot of, and I don't pretend to be a spiritual giant or anything like that, but I have my moments. But, the thing is, we talk about how could God let something like this happen if there is a God and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you believe, I'm only using the Christian faith because of my own belief system, but God's will has nothing to do with the choices that man makes. So I don't think it's God's will to or not do that. The most of the problems that we have in life personally and with our own country and the world are man-made problems. There's very few problems that are God-centered problems. Maybe some kind of natural disaster or something like nature. That.
But
go ahead, Ted.
If you're a believing person, you believe in God. You got to believe in the devil. And I don't think God does these things. I think these are the acts of the devil going through people that cause bad things that test people's faith. And I think people need to keep that in perspective. We have a benevolent God, and I just you got to pray for the people that have been hurt, and pray for the people that are in this mindset that yet haven't acted. I meant to send you a video somebody sent me. It was a transgender person. He had I guess they call him a buzz haircut, short on one side, long on the other, real flamboyant. And he just says, I don't fear this person. I don't fear these. I don't fear Republicans. I want to let you know that I'm armed. I know how to use a gun, and I'm coming after you. And this was put on social media. So there's that mindset out there. And again, it's a transgender, which I think is a mental condition, and I've been attacked for that stance, but I still think it is. I think it's something that needs to be dealt with through counseling. So that's all I'm going to say.
And I don't want to try to, I'm not even going to mention this guy's name, and he is a guy, by the way. But even he talks about in his so-called manifesto and videos and stuff that he was tortured himself. And, when I say tortured, I mean his tortured thoughts. And he had regrets and anxieties and all that kind of stuff. So clearly part of his transgenderism was part of his mental health. But the thing about it, Ted, because this mayor mentions, and we'll play some more in a minute, that also kind of brings up this topic. He says right off the bat, I don't want to hear anybody saying anything basically about transgender and all that. Well, the only way we're going to solve these problems with violence, gun violence, if you want to call it that, and that's a broad term, but where you have these mass shootings, is to have honest conversations. Could it include things like gun control and stuff? State by state level? Sure, it could, if that's what the states want to do. See, Here's the thing, and I just want to get this off my chest. I don't believe in federal gun laws, basically. That's not what my interpretation of the Constitution talks about. It's a state issue because the federal government's not supposed to infringe on it. If Minnesota wants to have much stricter gun laws than Florida has, so what? You know, that's an internal dialogue, and I can choose where to live, and I just need to know what I'm getting into if I travel to Minnesota. But they politicize this right off the bat and then criticize anybody else for politicizing it from a different way. Why can't we just have an honest conversation based on facts, Ted?
Right. You know, and again, I think this goes back to how society has changed. John, you and I grew up in an era where we'd take shotguns to school in our pickup and they'd be hanging on the rack in the back of the truck during the school day. Nobody messed with that stuff. You were responsible. There's responsibility for being in a free society. And I hope we can go into that in this sometime in this segment. You look at where we are today and what it takes to have the freedom and liberties that we experience any day. You know, one of the things I'm amazed with is garbage trash collectors, people that pick up our garbage. You look at that whole process. Can you imagine the mess we would have if we didn't have trash collectors, if we didn't have dumps, if we didn't have that infrastructure to do that? Goes with our water systems, our plumbing system, all those things. All those things have to work hand in hand in concert for us to have the lifestyle we have today. But when you start breaking it down and you start, you know, getting people that start losing responsibility or foregoing responsibility, you start getting a breakdown of civil society. And this is what you're seeing with the gun violence. It's not the gun. I mean, we've seen in European countries where Muslim actors mainly are going around with knives killing people. I mean, it's all over the world they're doing this. And so, again, it is a societal problem. It's not a gun problem. You can take all the guns away. People are going to still use knives or whatever. In Japan, they shot Prime Minister Abe with a handmade gun. So people are going to do bad things. Bad people do bad things. And we have to chastise that in society. And so we're not going to tolerate that. And this comes back to us personally. If you see something that somebody's doing that you think is nefarious, you need to report it. I had to do that to my neighbor whose mother called me because she was concerned about her son who was depressed. He was in his mid-20s. He walked around during the day in his pajamas. He had his holster on his side with a gun in it, and he just bought an AR. I called our sheriff at the time. They investigated the kid, didn't do anything about it. But I think it comes down to us individually as American citizens. We're not going to put up with this stuff, but if you don't speak up, you're going to be part of the problem.
Well, just a quick side note there. You mentioned about what would happen if we didn't have garbage collection. Well, I know firsthand, Ted, what would happen because when I was in New York City living up there in the mid-'80s, they had a garbage collection.
I remember that.
I was there, brother. And let me tell you, I wish I had pictures of it. But at that time, there were three. There wasn't just the Twin Towers. There was a third tower at the Twin Towers. And I kid you not, it had to be 20 stories high. Pile of garbage bags. It was unbelievable.
Well,
so I have seen it. It doesn't take long.
This is what I like about country music. You know, you think of Alabama, that song they sing about the American worker, you know, the farmer, you know, the mechanic, you know, all these people, they praise them because, again, it goes back to what I was saying. We all have to work in concert in our different realms to make this the society that we live in today. And if we start breaking down on that, in any of those segments, we get a breakdown in society. And you look at our criminal justice system. It's okay to shoplift if it's under $1,000. You're not going to prosecute you. I say that because that's what the left says. I don't think it's okay to shoplift, period. But, you know, if you commit these crimes, they let you out of jail with no bail. No, you should be in jail. There's jails for a reason. And I think we have to be harder on that stuff and be practical about it. And it's a matter of fact conversation. It's not racist. It's not, you know, we're trying to chastise somebody, although that has happened. And we need to punish those people that do those things. But we need to follow rule of law. And if not, we're not going to have a civil society for an extended period of time. In fact, this is the beginning of the cycle where societies start to break down. and you become dependent on immigrant help. And you can look at history, throughout history, the empires that have collapsed, they got to where they became the laissez-faire society, where they'll let the migrant help do this, and the caste system develops, and they become dependent on that, and that migrant, the working class realizes that, and they overthrow the elites. And that's where the Democrats and the socialists and new Democrat Party wants to take us. And it's not something that will make this country stronger.
Well, not to get too far sidetracked, but of course you always spur me to think.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, well, I saw, we just mentioned New York, so it made me think about this. I saw something where I wonder why people don't apply critical thinking or logic. I don't understand they can't. But Mandami was speaking up there, who's running for mayor, a communist socialist, and I'm assuming, been endorsed by these people, but it was the union basically of hotel and restaurant hospitality workers, union behind them. And I'm like, don't they understand that if this guy has his way, they're all going to be broke? Because who the heck's going to stay at a fancy hotel in New York City? It'll just be migrants, because the business will all be gone. I mean, it's just how they can support him. I can understand why they may or may not like Donald Trump, but how can you support a guy that literally wants to put you out of business? I don't get it. It's just crazy.
Well, the SEIU is the Surface Employees International Union, and they're the ones that do most of the hotels and the food stuff. And if you go back to the Obama administration, and I forget the guy that was in charge of that, it'll come to me. Obama had him, the head of the SEIU, in the White House. He was one of the most frequent callers at the White House and having meetings with Obama. And then you saw this government employee union starting to rise, and it's becoming spread throughout our government now. Trump has changed that. And, I'm not against unions per se. I think they had their time in America, and it was needed. But I think now it's become, a lot of these unions have become the parasite that kills their host. And they do that through wages and, just drive everything out of price, and we can't afford it. And we're seeing that like with Starbucks in California and these places that have unionized. I'm not going to go to Starbucks anyway, but I'm not going to pay $7 for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, put me in the category of Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when he was opposed to government unions. He was pro-union, but he was adamantly opposed to government unions, and that's a topic for another day.
It sure is. I'm pro-worker.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to keep on this story. We're talking, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the reaction, especially from the left, about what happened in Minneapolis with the school shooting. I want to play another quick snippet from the mayor of Minneapolis where he talks about the solutions to what happened and how to prevent them. Check this out.
What does that look like? I mean, well, obviously, from being a mayor for some time in Minneapolis, that there are gun laws in Minnesota that other states don't have, but there are some things that could still be done. Is that something that you hope people in the legislature have a will to do at this point in time?
We have more guns in America than people. Mm-hmm. Say it again. We have more guns in America than people. Why? Why is it so easy to get a gun? Why is it so easy to get a whole heap ton of guns? Why is it that you can buy a gun virtually every month if you wanted to? What good is that? We're not talking about your father's hunting rifle. We're talking about people that...
So there it is. It's the guns. It's not the shooter. It's not the fact that he has these mental health issues or any of that kind of stuff. It's the guns. Although I will bring this up, Ted, and I'll turn it over to you. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember when President Trump had the assassination attempt where he actually got shot, and then another one where the guy was going to shoot him. I don't remember the left saying one peep about gun control at that moment, but I could be wrong. But what? It's the guns, Ted. It's always the guns, man.
It's always the gun. And, you know, people just, and I know the people, but a lot of people understand this. A gun is an inanimate object. It's neither good nor bad. It's what people do with it. It's like, John, do you have a drill at home?
A grill, not that I know of. Maybe a stuff.
A drill, you know, a drill.
A drill. I thought you said a grill. Yeah. I got one or two drills. I try not to use them, but I got a couple.
They got to call. They got to call 911 when you pick up a tool, huh?
Yeah. Actually, I'm doing a lot.
You have a drill. The point is, you have a drill. The point is, you don't have a drill to have a drill. You have a drill to have a hole, right? You want to have a hole, so you have a drill to do the hole. You don't have a gun just so you can say, I have a gun. You have a gun whether you go hunting with it, whether you do sporting plays with it, whether you do it for protection. You don't have it to go out and shoot people. I mean, that's where the disconnect is, you know, and the mayor of Minneapolis, we have a right to have guns. And, you know, I'm part of that group that has accounted to have more guns than people. And that's my right. And I'm responsible with those things, and I'm sure you are, and a lot of people we know are well stocked, I'll say.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing about the Second Amendment, they talk about, like, remember Cuomo, who's running for mayor too, says you don't need 30 shots to kill a deer and all. But I saw a meme, and I should have made it our meme of the week, which I don't have one, by the way, that said, when they basically said that when the founding fathers created the Second Amendment or put it in the Constitution, they weren't worried that the deer were coming. That's not what they were concerned about.
And that's really where, and this goes back to education, teaching the basics, teaching the Constitution. Let people understand why we have a Second Amendment. We had a tyrannical government we broke away from, and it was to prevent tyranny in the future. And I mean, that's pretty simple, pretty basic, and I agree 100% with that. You dang right. We are well protected.
Well, think about this. I think it was Yamato, is that the great admiral of the Japanese Navy? He talked about how if they ever tried to actually invade the mainland United States of America, it would basically be impossible because of the armed citizenry. He said that, and that's all I mean, who could have said it better than him?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And so it goes back to this shooting. It's a horrible thing. It's horrific. It should never happen. But we know until we address the underlying problem, this will happen more. And, you get this transgender, that radical side of them. And there's a group out there, I think they're called the Zias. They're radical transgender, and they want to go out and kill people. I mean, it's on their website. They've been arrested. Leaders of that, a couple of them have been arrested, a couple have been killed. But that has been an influence to other people. Like that guy told you that he says he's transgender, he's got guns, and he wants to go out and kill people. So, I mean, there's that movement going on, which is a sick movement. And again, it's a mental health issue. And these need to be brought under control. These need to be investigated. The FBI should be investigating these people, not parents at school board meetings saying, I don't want my kids taught this transgender or this DEI or, the changing my child's gender without my consent. That's the garbage that needs to go away. And that should not be a domestic terrorism. These other ones, it's absolutely domestic terrorism, and they need to be stopped in their tracks. And given
you mentioned that group. I don't know if they were responsible. There was whether it was that group, but there was a transgender group. They might have been a fraction of them that attacked that ICE facility in Texas somewhere. I want to say it was Dallas, but it might not have been, where a cop was actually shot.
They're related to that Z group, Zia, I think it's called. It's if you look them up, it's a very radical group, and it's a scary group because they want to go out and kill people. And it's all for transgender rights and things like that. Everybody has a right to be whoever they want, but don't put that on me, and then don't have it tied into violence. And, there's just certain things in a civil society that go against the grain that we can't tolerate. And, going back to Christianity, it's a sin to hate, but it's not a sin to hate evil. You know, our job is to take care of evil. You know, of course, it comes down to who's going to define what evil is. You know, because people on the left say Donald Trump is evil.
Yeah, well, let's get into that real quick before we go to commercial
I just
break.
want to lead you into that.
Jen Psaki, who was the press secretary originally for Biden and was in that video, she basically in that video with the mayor of Minneapolis said that don't politicize these kind of tragedies. You don't want and the mayor reiterated that. But what's not being really mentioned much in the mainstream media, because this guy, in fairness to the guy that did all this, he apparently hated basically everybody because his list was pretty long. But on his list was killing President Trump, which is getting no coverage hardly whatsoever other than a few channels like us. But President Trump. Now, I want to play you a video. We're talking about Minneapolis. This was a couple of days before the shooting. I'm not linking the two. I'm simply pointing something out about rhetoric. This is the governor, Tim Walz. Thank God he's just the governor, not the vice president of Minnesota at the Democratic summer meetings, I guess they call them. And listen to just a snippet of what he says, Ted, and we'll come back and talk about it.
And I am proud of this state like so many others. And I will have to tell you, the privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to a bunch of shit on TV and a bunch of nonsense. We would wake up to an adult with compassion and dignity and vision and leadership doing the work. Not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty as hell.
That's just a snippet of about a 20-minute talk he gave, Ted, where he blasted MAGA people, basically called them idiots, and all they have is the red hats. But he talks about Trump. This is about 2 days before this shooting. I'm not saying that he led to that shooting, but I'm going to make that clear. But the rhetoric coming from the left is increasingly violent. It just is.
It really is. And this is something you're seeing it ramping up too. It's becoming more violent, and it's a steady incline. And this is a no-win situation for Tim Walz to get up there. You know, I served with him. He was a know-nothing congressman. Just whatever the Democratic Party said to do, he did it. I can't remember him presenting hardly any bills while I was there. And, you know, he got elected as governor. And for him to be out there, a couple things I want to point out. This is the DNC, the Democratic National Committee's convention in Minneapolis, where the chair of the DNC nationwide is your cousin, Ken Martin. I know he's not related to you.
He might be.
He might be.
We all have black sheep.
You got the better genes. But that party, they're operating and giving the same message that caused them to lose, but they're putting it on steroids. They're attacking MAGA supporters. They're attacking Trump and what he's standing for. Those are the things that brought Trump in, and those are the things that they attacked that made him lose. It's kind of like Hillary Clinton say, oh, it's the Bible Belt, the Bible thumpers, the deplorables, all those ingratiating words she called us that allowed her to lose. Thank God for that. And then one other thing, when he mentions how much better America would be with Kamala Harris as president, listen to the lack of enthusiasm in the crowd. I think there's like 10 people going, yeah, rah, rah, rah. You know, it was pathetic, but yet they keep putting these people out there. Tim Walz, you know, like he said, he's a knucklehead. And, you know, I hope they keep parading him around. They ought to team him up with Bernie and AOC and do the oligarch tours.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I hope you'll listen and like our sponsors and support them. If you'd like to become a sponsor, look at the Call Freddie tagline there and make that call. But before we go, Ted, just so because we got about a 3 or 4 minute commercial break, I want to plant this thought in your mind that if you served with Tim Waltz, and if he'd have gotten his way, because you missed out, you could have gotten free tampons from the men's restrooms in Congress. I'm just leaving you with that. We'll be right back.
Appreciate that.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All these poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back.
And Ted, like I just said as we were coming back, that old warthog, which I know is a favorite of yours, that shows you why you might need to be armed if something like that.
That cameraman wish he had it. I got to laugh every time I've seen that, because I have seen greenhorns, people that haven't been around livestock, thinking, oh, what a pretty animal. I think I'll pet him.
Yeah, they're going to pet it. They pet a bison. They pet the bison, bears and stuff. It's crazy. You know, I guess that's a way of Darwinism to weed those people out. But all right, well, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. We're going to talk about Mayor Bowser. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Mary Bowser.
The mayor of D.C. Now, she's played all sides of this issue, but it seems like she's beginning to come around, which I'm guessing has to do with poll numbers more than anything else.
This is a good story.
She's admitted, Ted, that Trump's D.C. crime crackdown, she hadn't really thanked him so much, but she has said it has worked after initially pushing back against it. Imagine that. It actually begins to work. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is an interesting story, and I commend her for coming out and saying that when she knows it's not popular with the Democrat structure that's out there now. With the people of D.C., I think the majority of them really appreciate it. I mean, overall, after all, who can say, I don't want to be safer, I don't want to be less worried about getting carjacked or shot or somebody else getting shot? And you think about what's happened up in D.C. recently, the shootings, the engaged Jewish couple that got shot in front of the meeting they were going into, the carjackings. Who doesn't want that to be free of that kind of worry? And for Mayor Bowser to change shows me that she's got some common sense and that's somebody you can work with. But you look at the narrative and the message going to the Democrat elite, the DNC with Tim Walz and Ken Martin, the director of the DNC. You think of that message going to them, and I know you've got another one coming from an advisor, Ishma. He'll come up here in a minute. You look at the message they are saying to their base that they think is important to them, but you look at Marion Bowser. Then you tie that into John Fetterman coming out supporting President Trump. John Kerry supporting President Trump on the border. This shows you how out of touch the establishment of people running the DNC are. And we hope that they stay that way so that they don't gain power, because they're a toxic organization that's anti-American. So for Mayor Bowser, I commend her and look forward to continued success in a safer DC. And I hope it's for these other big cities.
What's really interesting, and you see this, DC just magnified it, but you see it everywhere. You got the people that are actually with the megaphones protesting and shouting at J.D. Vance and President Trump and all that about this crackdown. They're all liberal white people. Have you noticed that? Mostly women, but some men with the hair buns and whatnot. You don't see, you see them on TV like some of these pundits, but you don't see a upwelling of black people out there protesting the fact that crime is going down in DC, because they're impacted from it. And to me, you talk about racism, to basically say that it's acceptable to have so many murders predominantly in, because the ones that get all the coverage are the ones like the shooting of the Jewish couple and stuff like that, maybe rightfully so. But the majority of the fatalities you have there and in Chicago and places like that are predominantly black Americans.
Black on black.
Yeah, and the thing that's always gotten me, Ted, is when I see these neighborhoods where it be in Gainesville or anywhere else that are predominantly black, and there's a lot of crime in them, you know what my first thought goes to? The good people that are in those neighborhoods, not the crime. I mean, that to me, but I think about the good people, because there's a lot of good, decent people living in some pretty horrendous situations. And I feel for them, because not only are they a victim of crime, but they're chastised if they try to speak out about it, you know.
They sure are.
And I think what's happening with this is we're beginning to see, and Bowser is no dummy, she's beginning to see that her base constituency is kind of saying, hey, you know, this ain't a bad deal.
I think this is a bold move by President Trump to do this. And I think it was a very strategic one, too, because if you get somebody like a Mayor Bowser saying, well, you know, let's look at this, it has become better. So if she's going to say that the strategy of Trump is he's talking about doing this in Baltimore, he's talking about doing it in Pittsburgh, he's talking about doing it in Chicago. Now these mayors have either got to come out and say, we don't want you here, you're not going to do that here, or Pritzker of Illinois is going to say, you're not doing that in my state. But if he does that and crime doesn't go down, and these other cities where Trump has intervened and the crime rate goes down, it's a losing situation, not just for the party, but it's a losing situation for what you said. You feel bad for the people that want it to be better. And the politicians are preventing it over politics versus trying to protect their citizens, which is really the charge they have when they get elected.
Yeah, well, we're going to play a quick video here of President Trump when he's talking about the DC crackdown and the potential to go to other cities. I really, one thing about Donald Trump, you don't have to wonder what's on his mind. He just tells you. And I love that about it. But let's play this quick snippet here, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Do you anticipate the Democrat voters are going to take it out on them at the
I think so. I think that crime is going to be a big thing. And we are the party, the Republicans are the party that wants to stop crime. We're against crime. The Democrats like crime. I don't know why. I mean, we talk about common sense. I think I got elected on talking about common sense.
many mayors oppose those efforts in their cities.
Well, there's Ted. He popped back.
There I
He's
am.
gone for a moment. But there's Donald Trump. He's asked about it, and he said, the Democrats seem to love crime. And the Republicans, we're opposed to crime. He says, I don't know why they love crime, but they appear to love crime. And I'll say this, and I'll turn it over to you, Ted. I don't know if you saw this or not, but out in California now, Mayor Bass of LA and now Gavin Newsom have formed some type of task force where they're going to like hone in on street level crime, and which I'm all in favor of doing. But what the heck? Where they been all these years, especially Gavin Newsom? Trump has actually motivated them to do something about crime.
But before they do that,
crazy.
Before they do that, they'll have a study to see if they should do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. Trump
go ahead, Ted.
He's got the intuition to say, we're going to do this, and that's what I love about leadership. You make a decision. It may not be the right decision. And if it's not, you correct, but you just have to do something. And this goes back to Norman Schwarzkopf. There's 2 rules: do what's right and then do something. And if you fail at that, you forget, go back and do what's right and do something. And you just repeat that. And that's the way Trump is. He just shoots from the hip, but he's got great intuition.
Well, the president just mentioned that the Democrats love crime. And of course, when we're talking about Mayor Bowser in D.C., that she seems to be coming around. And then I just mentioned what Bass and Gavin Newsom, which I think is all token. But if you want to know that if President Trump is right about this week, we just talked about the fact that they had the summer meetings in Minneapolis, Minnesota this past week. I want to play you a brief snippet from a lady I never heard of her before, but her name is Ishna Rahim, and I did a little research on her, and that's
the one I tried to bring up.
Yes, she's actually pretty active as a consultant in Democratic Party, so this is not just a one-off thing. But here she is talking about crime and how the Democrats should react to it. Let's play this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Go. Migrant crime, carjackings, the really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans. And then go to the issues voters care about. Where does Trump go?
So don't talk about migrant crime, which is illegal immigrants crime. Let's just call it what it is. Or carjackings, for God's sakes, Ted. Don't talk about that because most Americans don't even care about that. Go ahead. Can't make it up.
I hope they keep paying somebody like her for advice, and Tim Walz follows it. I did some research on her too, the Vera Institute. It is, let's see, it is a liberal criminal justice think tank. And she says we must dismantle the current culture of policing in the United States. The Vera Institute said in 2020, during the anti-police protests that erupted across the country after George Floyd, a black man murdered by a white police officer in Minneapolis, they came out in support of that, building on this unique movement of public awareness and outrage and calls to defund the police. Fits right in there with AOC, Bernie, and all the liberal lefts. She went on to say, the Vera Institute for years, including its ties to former President Joe Biden, Justice Department, and liberal billionaire, I just lost my notes there, liberal billionaire George Soros, they're funding these type of organizations. And so this is where that garbage comes from, John, and it's a losing argument, but yet the Democrats keep putting this out there, and I hope they keep doing this.
Yeah, well, I just tell people, hey, take them at their word. If you wonder, one thing about her speaking, take them at their word, because she's telling you flat out, and I believe it when she's saying that she's saying you don't care, but I don't believe that part. But they don't care about illegal immigrant crime, which is killing innocent. That's one crime that could absolutely be prevented because they shouldn't even be here. They don't care about carjackings, which is probably the most violent thing the average American could be exposed to, besides maybe home invasion. And I'm sure she said they don't care about that because you mentioned George Floyd, and he invaded a woman's home, a pregnant woman, put a gun to her belly and all that. But he's a hero. They don't care about any of that. So I don't care what race, creed, or color you are. If you care about the safety of your family, how can you support that?
And again, the Vera Institute that this Insha Rahman stated, the Vera Institute has advocated for defunding the police and openly stated their mission is to demolish a racist criminal justice system. Now, that could be a whole program talking about the racism in the criminal justice system. And we should go into that at some point and really talk about it. When you get down to the facts and figures and you look at the demographics of the violent crimes and things like that, and the amount of deaths in different demographics, it paints a whole different picture. And then you look at those statistics, and you got to wonder, why is that? And you go back to the civil rights movement or the Great Society that Lyndon Johnson brought in that destroyed the nuclear family, primarily of the African American culture, and it's done it to the white culture too, and made people dependent on government handouts. And it's unsustainable. And I sent you that article in Germany where they said we can no longer afford a very liberal welfare system. And you're going to see more countries around the world, including the United States, change.
Well, Ted, think about this. You know, your gut reaction might be, and mine never was, but it might be that a crackdown, this is before this latest thing on the border and all that, would be that Trump would lose the Hispanic vote even worse than he had in the past.
Right.
I predicted that was not the case several years ago. And the reason is because all of these people that were coming here illegal predominantly are Spanish, and I'm not putting it all on them, but where are they going to go? They are impacting Hispanic communities, schools and hospitals and streets and all that first, because everybody wants to feel normal and that, especially if they don't speak the language. So I knew it was going to impact them the greatest, the quickest. But the same thing about this crime. If you were, let's just say you said, okay, we're just going to start over and we're going to release everybody from prison right now. Do you really think that's going to have a dramatic effect on Beverly Hills or the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard, for God's sake, where they got the people out in less than 24 hours? No, it's going to predominantly impact the poorest people first. Then it's going to impact ethnic groups where people are going to go. Then it's going to impact every average working Americans. That's who's going to be impacted. Is the wealthy on any side, elite, are going to be the most protected if that were to happen. It's just the way it is.
They really will be until that population that has been really underprivileged gets enough volume in it, and they'll overthrow the elites. Nancy Pelosi's with her gated community with I don't know if she's got glass shards on the top of her fence or Constantine wire. You can't put enough on there to protect yourself. And, this is where, when you look at a country like ours, we're all in this together. We all need to work together to make America stronger. We need to make it safer, and we need to protect the opportunity that leads to the American dream, that you and I have benefited, and so many people that have come from other countries that have come here for that opportunity. And they have exceeded beyond their wildest dreams. That sets an example for other people, but you have to follow the rule of law and you have to assimilate. You brought up the Latino community. We're here in Marathon, and there is a large Latino community. You know, the one thing I noticed, they are a strong Christian community. You go by their church on Wednesday evening, it's packed. You go there Sunday, it's packed. You know, they have the values of the Christian doctrine. And they're following that, and they're hard workers. And when I talk to these people that have come to this country, they come for peace, security, and a better life for them and their family. And we should accommodate that in a legal way to make our society stronger. And the demographics of America, the face of it, the Anglo-Saxons, you and I, we're going to become a minimum, or not a majority anymore. We'll become a minority. But the founding principles and the core values that make America what America is, they're in the Constitution. They should be revered by all people to protect, so that we can pass the liberties and freedoms on to the next generations to come.
All right, well, we got about 5 minutes left in the show, and I want to hit on just a variety of topics here in no particular order. And I know one of them you wanted to talk about was this, because these are things, what I'd say, agree or disagree with President Trump, because I don't agree with everything that he is proposing or doing. And here's a couple that are controversial to me. We'll start with number 2 on my list, which is 600. The president recently said that he is in favor of or supports 600,000 Chinese nationalist students to come into our university system, which is basically double what we have now. He's coming under some fire from his own base about this, and I'm concerned about it too. What do you think, Ted?
I think this is a misstep in foreign policy. If you go back 3 months ago when Marco Rubio said we're going to hold visas from all foreign nationals and 277,000 students here from China, I thought that was a very good move. I can only think that behind the scenes, China has put pressure on our president over the rare earth minerals that they control, over the pharmaceuticals that China controls, and he's put this pressure on us saying, you will not do this or we're going to withhold this. This is a misstep. To go from 277,000 Chinese national students in this country to 600,000 makes absolutely no sense, and I'll tell you why. 90 million people belong to the Communist Party. People that come over here from China as students, they are part of the 1,000 Talents program. They're in the Communist Party, and they have to report back to China. Their goal is to spy, espionage, and report on people that are anti-Chinese, especially if they're Chinese nationals. They got to report that back. If they don't, they get in trouble. They've got to do the stealing and the theft of intellectual property at our researchers, at our companies, at our manufacturers, and they send that back to China. This is one of the reasons that China is starting to outpace us in the artificial intelligence. If you look at their H2O chip, their I forget what company makes it, but it's their AI chip is becoming competitive with NVIDIA's AI chip, which was the strongest in the world, the most powerful AI chip in their GPUs, the game processing units. That is the gold standard. Well, China's company, because they have come in and they have stole this, and this, I'm not just saying this, this is not just blank rhetoric. This is well documented, and we can put a list of things where they've stole this stuff. They are now outpacing us in AI. So go back to the Manhattan Project. We were in a race. It was a secret project to develop the atomic bomb. Had Germany got the bomb before us, would the world be different today, John?
Might not even be here.
That's right. And so if China outpaces us with AI technology, and then you marry that with what's coming online with quantum computing, and they lead the nation or the world in that, they will set the standard, and you will follow that, and you will be a citizen that has to fall in line according to Chinese doctrine. That's what's at stake here. It's liberty and freedom. And so for Trump to allow 600,000 students in here makes absolutely no sense to me, unless there's a whole lot more behind the scenes that I don't know, and I'm sure there is. But I know enough to know this is not a good idea.
So I'm going to put it, in case, President, in case you're listening or some of your people, the 3 Ps, we're against it.
We're against it, buddy.
We're against it. One more quick thing, and we'll have to end on this. Donald Trump just signed an executive order. The details are still a bit sketchy about flag burning. Now, I'm adamantly opposed to flag burning, but I'm concerned about the First Amendment rights and stuff like that, a protest and that type of thing. I got to believe this is more of a tactic, maybe a trap, as they say, to put the Democrats to come out for flag burning, because we know there's going to be more of it now that he's done that.
Right.
But what are your closing thoughts on that, Ted?
You and I talked about this, and you and I both agree in all the amendments, but the right to free speech. This is a form of free speech that I despise. I think it's a slap in the face. It's as bad as Colin Kaepernick kneeling during our Pledge of Allegiance. It's anti-American, and you have a right to be able to do that in this country. Unfortunately, flag burning. It's like you and I talked before the show started. I would prefer they made it where it was legal to take these people behind the woodshed and treat them properly, and not get in trouble for that kind of education. But for Trump to come out and say this is illegal and we're going to make it a jail sentence, I think that's wrong, and I think it's going to work against him. But as you said, if he did this to put the Democrats where they come out and say, oh, we're going to burn the flag, it's not going to help them either. So, no, we'll see how this pans out. I'm just blessed in this country. We have choices, and we have all the amendments that give us what we have today as far as liberty and freedom.
Well, that's going to do it for our show today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share it far and wide. And one more thing, and I'll let you close us out, Ted. We're going to be at Black Tie and Blue Jeans on the 25th, and there's the thing, of September. And I hope you'll come out and check us out. Ted, close us out with that.
No, I do. I want you guys to come out and see us, talk to us, give us your thoughts and feedback. And, John and I, we're going to ramp up this show. We're going to have more of a presence. We're going to go on different platforms, and you'll see more and more of this. There'll be more advertising. There'll be just a different format. And we look forward to you guys coming out and giving us your feedback. Come to Black Tie and Blue Jeans. You're going to see Byron Donalds, who's running for governor. You're going to see other